Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. One of the most common assumptions people make is that if someone has spent their career helping others make investment and financial planning decisions, they probably don't need a financial advisor themselves. After all, if you're a chief investment officer with decades of experience managing portfolios, studying the markets, and helping families make important financial decisions, what role could an advisor possibly play in your own retirement? Today's conversation explores exactly that question. I'm joined by Kent Kramer, Foster Group's Chief Investment Officer, and his wife, Kim. As they prepare for retirement, they've been asking some of the same questions every family faces, such as how do we make the most of the year ahead, and how do we protect the people we love? Kent brings a unique perspective because he understands both sides of the relationship. He has spent more than 3 decades advising others. Yet, as he prepares for retirement, he and Kim have recognized that retirement planning is about much more than investment expertise. Today, we'll talk about time and family, confidence, planning, and ultimately what gives people peace of mind as they enter the next chapter of life. Kent and Kim, welcome. Thank you so much for your willingness to share your experiences and your story. Just to get things started, Kent, maybe talk a little bit about the first meeting you had with your advisor, with Kim, when you started talking about retirement. What became clear in that meeting? You said it was significant. And how did both of you start thinking about retirement planning a little bit different after that?
Well, it was really significant. It's something that I've been doing with other people for many, many years. And so I thought, well, I'd be good for Kim to see what we do with clients. I thought she would benefit from kind of going through the same exercises that we did with clients. The funny thing about that meeting was it ended up being as helpful or maybe more helpful for me. I did not expect that. I was surprised by that, but the conversation that Kim and I were able to have with our advisor to begin to talk about the future, to listen to, or to have someone actually draw us out a bit in terms of things that we hoped for. I just, we've talked about it. We don't think we would have gotten there on our own with that. So it was surprising. The other thing that was, I think, surprising to me, and maybe not if I think about it now, but seeing a plan, talking about the things that are important to us, and then having things come back to us and say, here's a plan that would work. Here's some things you can do. Seeing that written down created kind of some accountability as well as some permission. There were things that we wanted to do sooner. I don't think we would have done them as soon had I not felt a strong sense of permission, not because I needed someone to tell me, hey, that's okay for you to do that, but I needed someone to show me that we could do that and it was going to make sense and with our long-term plan that we'd be able to accomplish these things. So it was really it was kind of a turning point, I would say, in the way that we talk about finances and do these things together.
Just having that objective voice speak into this moment in your life. Maybe the same question then for you, Kim. What was the experience of that meeting like, and maybe the conversation thereafter?
It was overwhelming on one side, but on the other, just kind of humbling that we were in a position that we could make some plans and choices that I really never saw laid out quite like Brad and Lucas had for us. I was in awe of Kent's planning for us, his fiscal discipline and the way that he has put us in this position, I guess. And we're just feeling very blessed. I was particularly impressed with the scope, I guess, of what Brad was presenting, and also Kent's humility to give them opportunity to have that role for us to outsource it in that way. It reminded me a little of when my girls wanted to take piano lessons, and I am a pianist, but I decided after a bit of time that I wasn't the best to teach them piano, and it was better for me to pay someone else to do that, to outsource that, to protect our relationship, really, for the most part. So
that's a great analogy, and I love the fact that the two of you can kind of draw back to that conversation, that particular meeting, right? as kind of the launching point for coming to this conclusion. And one thing I just want to touch on is that you're more than equipped to do this yourself, right? You've got multiple decades of experience. And so talk just a little bit about some of the technicalities when it comes to retirement planning and why you are choosing to hire a professional advisor at this point.
Sometimes you can know too much. I think this is a little bit of that. One of the things I've learned over the years is financial planning, investment management it's a daily discipline. And it's a daily discipline not because you are doing something different every day, but because information becomes available every day. Tax law changes might happen every day or on a particular day. And you just don't know which day they're going to take place. There's going to be these days along the way when you're going to be given some new information or a circumstance is going to change. And if you're a little slow in responding, or maybe just not even aware, then you're going to miss opportunities or maybe do things that you could have, protected yourself from a mistake. So for me, that understanding of the dailiness and then the scope of the things that, an advisor is kind of looking at for a client. You think about, we're talking about retirement. So certainly retirement investing and planning, that's one. But then you think about, well, what's related to that? Okay, well, there's Social Security planning. There's going to be Medicare and Medicare supplements and other kinds of insurance that you're going to be looking at. And then keep on expanding. Okay, what do you want to do for your children and your grandchildren? Are there education planning opportunities for that? What are you thinking about doing charitably in terms of giving? And the kinds of tools now available for charitable giving where you can transfer shares or appreciated stock into something called the donor advised fund and maybe do that in a year to offset taxes when taxes would be particularly high. Or maybe there's going to be a period in time in the future when, hey, this would be a good year to do a Roth conversion because you have a low tax rate and let's take advantage. The list is so long of opportunities, and those are just things that kind of we know of. So to go back to this long list, this scope of information, plus the dailiness, and you realize, well, do you really want to do that? Do I really want to be responsible? And again, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing because I know all that. The temptation would be for me to pay way more attention than I want to all of that. It would become, I think, very distracting to me in retirement. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, but it's because the list of things to pay attention to can potentially be so long.
Yeah, and the landscape is constantly changing. And so maybe this isn't what you want to talk about at your coffee every morning together in retirement, which kind of leads me to my next question. Again, you could do this yourself, but I think one of the things that helped make the decision more clear is even though you can do it, is that what you want to do with your time in retirement? And so maybe just talk a little bit about that, compare and contrast.
Yeah, great question. As I mentioned, I've been doing this now for 35 years in one way or another. And it's been very interesting. I've enjoyed it, but I've found the last few years that my curiosities, my interests have begun to change a bit, which you'd think kind of makes sense because if they didn't change, then why would you retire? I think the way I think about it is for those 35 years, we've been kind of trading human capital for financial capital. So I've been spending hours working and doing things that I enjoy and are challenging. And then kind of in exchange, I'm getting income, and some of that income we save for the future. Well, at this stage in our lives, as kind of our interests, curiosities, timeframes change, I want to flip that relationship. So now I want to draw on that financial capital to do the things that require time and money that we maybe haven't had quite as much flexibility with in the past. I saw a picture recently that I really liked a lot. It's a picture of two overlapping circles. And in the area where they overlap, it's kind of an interesting word. It says spend the money. The two circles are people you love and experiences that you want to have. So if you think about where the people you love and the experiences you want to have, where they overlap, spend the money. What they're saying is it is worth spending the money to do those things that are most important to you. But when I thought about the graph, I thought, well, it's a little incomplete because not only do you need the resource of the money to spend, but you need the time, right? Because this is about experiences and people, and both of those require time. So it's time and money. And I think about, that's exactly where we are now. We've been fortunate, as Kim mentioned, to have more accumulation than I think either of us would have ever expected when we were in our 20s, early married, having young children. And now we have the opportunity to have this time. And we don't know how long that time will be. I mean, I'm 64, will be 65 this year. And one of my heroes is a guy named Tim Keller. He was a pastor and a teacher. I just have read a lot by him. Well, he died at age 73. This is not to be morbid. I feel pretty healthy. We both seem healthy, but there's just no guarantees. And so as the time naturally gets shorter, you start to go, hey, what do we really want to make sure we do that we don't miss out on, that maybe we haven't had the time or the resources to do up to this point?
Back to you, Kim. So one of the things, it's very common for couples to kind of divide responsibilities, right, as you go through a marriage. And one person maybe takes the lead on finances, and, Kent has done that in your relationship. How important is it for you as you think about having an advisory team that understands your goals, understands your values, just in case there would be a situation where they need to kind of step in and, help take care of things?
That's a huge aspect, I think, of having an advisor team and having Brad and Lucas, which we've joked we're not going to let Brad retire. But I understand, like I said earlier, a part of what we discuss in our meetings, but so much goes over my head. And I appreciate the fact that I know who to call, and Kent has said that to me as I have wondered, what if something happens to you? I will not know what to do, and I will not know where things are. He said, call Brad, and that's what I'll do. So that gives peace of mind, for me, for our children, I think. There's just no price that you can put on that for me.
So both of you have a big and growing family. So you raised 4 girls, you have 4 son-in-laws, and as of a month ago, now 10 grandchildren. So congratulations on all that. So as you were thinking about hiring an advisor in retirement, how much did the future of your family come into play when you thought about wanting to pass on those, values to the next generation?
Yeah. Well, what Kim just said about kind of I guess it's this whole idea of the future is uncertain. We talk about embracing uncertainty as one of our values around here in terms of thinking about investments. It's really just that way we think about life. We have to embrace a degree of uncertainty, and we ask the question, what would happen if something happened to me or something happened to both of us, whatever it might be. And what we knew is that, hey, there are things we want to do, hopefully with our children and grandchildren, for our children and grandchildren, for each other, things we want to, experiences that we want to have, for organizations that we care about. So yes, a plan is a wonderful thing to have and to put in place. At the same time, you need kind of the confidence that somehow that thing will be executed. So we bring ourselves and resources to it, but we feel very good about having a team here at Foster Group who, regardless of the shape that we're in, whether it's both of us or one of us, those kinds of things that we value can continue. And of course, having then the freedom and the permission now to do the things that we want to with our family and our grandchildren and for them and for others, it's just, there's a lot of freedom in that. And part of it goes back to that idea of why wouldn't I do this myself, was because the attention that we want to give to those things, I really don't want that attention divided away by worrying about or wondering or having to pay attention to that kind of long list of financial things that could be a daily distraction and really keep me from fully engaging in the things that we want to do together.
All right, Kent, you're a reader. I know you love books. Kim knows you love books, right? You call them his friends. So one of the things you've learned through your career is that smart people can still be very vulnerable to mistakes. And so how important has it been to have someone that is objective in this decision and in this future for you and not just be relying on your own judgment.
Exactly. I think that's a really good one to think about. I use the phrase, and it's not original with me, but to know yourself. And one of the things that comes with knowing yourself is knowing your own kind of fallibility, things that you can just make mistakes in or whatever. I've been fortunate to work with hundreds and hundreds of clients and to observe them working through their own kind of financial issues and questions and things like that. And what's been amazing to me is how many incredibly smart people can still be kind of susceptible to mistakes, whether it's from a sales pitch or from kind of misguided fear, lack of confidence, whatever it might be. There's all kinds of things that just play on us and that can lead us into, problematic decision making. One of the guys who I really like to read is a guy named Danny Kahneman, and Kahneman was a Nobel laureate in the area of behavioral psychology and behavioral finance. A Nobel laureate. So, he's, top of the field discovering this stuff. Somebody asked him in his 80s, they said, Professor Kahneman, since you know all this or have discovered all this, certainly you're not vulnerable to these same biases. And he just laughed and said, oh, no, I'm just as vulnerable and maybe more so than anybody else. Knowing about these things doesn't make you necessarily less vulnerable. And, I really thought a lot about that statement. That's just an amazing statement to think about. But a few other things that I've read and kind of preparing for retirement just talks about as we age, certain things happen. We become more susceptible to fear. We have some cognitive decline. We have physical decline. It sounds terrible. But at the same time, I don't think we lose our ability to think. We certainly bring wisdom. But having that third party, someone else outside, so maybe when I'm listening to a story or something like that, or beginning to contemplate something that maybe is founded wrongly, that person can gently, especially if I already trust them, they can gently push back on that a little bit. So much of the noise in our world, particularly in the financial world, is based on, fanning fear and uncertainty and creating action or getting attention by creating really unfounded fears, I would say. And again, as people age, just the science would say we are more susceptible to fear. And when you are afraid, you are vulnerable to wrong and bad decision making. So I expect that to be true for me. Maybe less true for Kim. I don't know. She's smarter than I am. But the idea there is we will be susceptible and we will benefit from having people who can kind of watch us and who we have regular interactions with to talk about these things. I think they will really help us to kind of calm fears, to continue to embrace optimism about the long-term future, all those things that we believe. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, you might question them and be tempted to do something that later you'll regret.
Can I share our house story?
Absolutely. It's a good story.
A few years ago, we were looking at the house we've been living in for 23 years, and our family was growing. And I think over a couple of years, we hired 3 different architects to design different ways to redesign, add on to our home. We wanted to stay so bad, but it became pretty clear that it wasn't worth that investment. So as we met with Brad and we were looking at maybe moving, the numbers were kind of big for Kent to wrap his head around. And I think he balked. He was very
hesitated. He hesitated. Let's just say yes.
And I remember Brad looking at Kent and saying, Kent, you can afford to move. And that's all it took for us to begin to dream. And we did move. And now we have a wonderful gathering place for all of them when they come. And I appreciated the objectivity of Brad, because not like Kent didn't see the numbers either, but there was just enough of a fear of what that might mean for the future.
The listeners may be surprised to find out that as a retiree of Foster Group, you now become a paying client. And so maybe just talk a little bit about why you see value in hiring an advisor at this stage. And then also, both of you know Foster Group as well as anyone. So why are you choosing Foster Group?
Well, I think kind of for the reasons that we've been talking about this whole time, the dailiness, the complexities, the scope of things that need to be potentially dealt with, at least paid attention to. For me, it's a question of, do I want to do that or not? I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend my time doing that. We laugh about people talk about time as money. I think the service is more than worth it, because for us, it means we can shift our attention to really where we want to deploy it. And with that attention comes, our time, the ability to kind of spend money freely or spend the money in the way that we want. So I go back to this. I use the word permission, but it's kind of a permission that's based on what I would say a factual presentation. That third-party expert saying, you've told me that these are the things that you want to do. Let me show you that you can do them, and you actually have space. You're not pushing too hard in doing these things. You can do them sooner than later. That is tremendously freeing. Mm-hmm. And so the ability to have these conversations as often as we need, and to know that behind the scenes, all the things that are important, that I think of as important, that I've helped other people for 30 years to, so their lives can hopefully be as intentional, and they can pay attention to the things that they want to pay attention to, realize the dreams that they have. We want the same, and absolutely worth it.
I'd say the enormous competence is matched with an enormous care here at Foster Group. Just in the last 6 months, I've gone to a couple celebration of life services with Kent, who were former clients, and he's not the only one showing up. There's a team of people here that just care about clients, and that means a whole lot for sure, going into the future especially. And it's just friendship as well. I know Kent's worked here, so we have a unique inroad to that. But I think that even those who would come from the outside find that there's a very personal service.
Yeah. I think for people who are going to really benefit from and value an advisor, Kim mentioned it, but here we think about character, competence, and care. And that character is kind of an integrity, a level of integrity that you know the people that you're working with, and you can just absolutely trust them because you know the kind of people that they are. That's super important. Competence, highly competent people paying for expertise, that's just worth it. And really, it should be our expectation that the people that we're working with, if we're paying them for professional service, we should expect competence. And this goes back again to why I don't want to do it myself, because competence is not just competence today, but it's competence next year and 10 years from now. I expect that people will get better and better at delivering, and they'll know more and more. And so that kind of competence and development we see here. And then the last thing is care. You genuinely want to know that the people who are working with you, working for you, they care. They want to see good results for you. And it's not just a transactional relationship, but it's genuinely a personal relationship that you have confidence in. So those are, as people say, well, what should I look for in an advisor? Well, I'd start there. I would sure want someone to be a fiduciary, someone who has, your best interests in mind. But it's hard to go wrong with character, competency, and care.
All the good things at Foster Group are a result of your professional contribution, as well as just having you both as part of the Foster Group family. So,
well, I've been very fortunate to be part of a team. I was having lunch with someone recently, and he was asking me about kind of the scope of my career at Foster Group, and I told him, I said, one of the things that happened is I was at the right place at the right time, and God graciously connected us with the right people. The people at Foster Group have just been wonderful to work with, to work alongside, and now to having them, we anticipate having them work for us. It's kind of a neat deal. I'd add one thing to that too. I just forgot, but as I was talking, we are hopefully going to outlive the career span of our advisor right now. So at some point, we talk about Brad as being our advisor today. as much as we would like for Brad to be around forever, he will, like me, retire at some point. And the way that we do things at Foster Group, Lucas is there now, and somebody will come alongside him next. And so as people retire, we who continue to live our lives, hopefully for a long time, and have these plans in place, we want to know that the people that we're working with know us, understand our plans, and are going to be available to help us and probably our children with the things that are important to us. So this continuity, this lifetime of advice idea and continuity is another area where I just feel very confident. Because of the way the company's been set up, we want to remain independent. We want to remain internally owned. We want to be multi-generational. Those are values within the company. So that, to me, speaks to the longevity of the relationship that we look forward to.
Yeah, that's the value of being the client of the firm rather than a single advisor.
Exactly.
Well, last question here. So you talked earlier about, when you were in your 20s, you couldn't envision this point and everything that's come with that, all the blessings. Maybe as you think about the next 20 years, what do you hope to gain from the decision that you're making today? And what advice would you share with listeners as far as your experience that could be considering the same questions?
20 years seems like a long time. Maybe it'll be longer, in terms of lifespan and things like that. I think there's a few things there. We certainly have some goals in mind as a couple that we hope to have traveled and done some very interesting things. One of the questions earlier talked about, what else do you want to do besides this? And I think, I would like to maybe learn to cook, which seems crazy because that's something I've never really pursued that much. We're both musicians, so I would like to be maybe a little bit better musician. I hope to have some time to practice and improve in that. Certainly, some of the bigger ones are I would like to be really engaged with my grandchildren and our children in ways that I haven't been maybe as much because of work commitments and things like that. I haven't been as flexible. So those are really, some of the things we look forward to. We just look forward to, I guess I go back to those two circles and think about that idea of experiences and the people you love, spend the money and time where those things interact. I would just hope that the 20 years to come, we have a lot of that overlapping space and that we're choosing to step into that really, really well, because I think we'll enjoy it. And I think that people we love will enjoy it too, which makes it even more enjoyable for us when that happens.
Mm-hmm. I agree with all of that. I just think our family is a big deal. Our faith is also a big deal. And I think that some advice would be to be generous, to start small. Even when we were in our 20s, Kent was pretty faithful in setting aside something to give to others. And I do think that's one of the reasons God has blessed us. One of my favorite things at the end of the year is a vehicle we use is this donor advised fund, but we'll put money into that. At the end of the year, we have quite a sum to decide where to direct. And that is always such a fun thing to get to do. And if I think about it, we only have the freedom to do that because of some discipline in other areas. I don't know how else to describe that. Other than that, There's just a lot of joy in the giving. And you can start small, and not big. But that is something I hope to continue. If there's an area I need to be restrained in, is it's giving to the kids and kids. And I try to be non-defensive, but you'll be like, "Did you buy this?" And I'll just say, "Yeah, I did." But I think that keeping communication open and talking about financial plans is important in a marriage.
We have been very fortunate as time has gone on to be able to be, I would say, increasingly generous and to be more intentional about it. One of the things in that planning every year, and I laugh now, I have actually with me, they're like 3x5 cards, and after our kind of annual year-end meeting each year for our plan, what we're looking at doing the next year, I have about 6 to 9 things that I said, these are the things that we need to do this year to keep on track, which is wonderfully simple when you think about it. And you walk away from what could be a very complex, kind of overwhelming meeting But I know the 6 to 9 concrete things that we're going to need to do. And I anticipate that for the next 20 years or however long we have, that we'll hopefully still have those 6 to 9 things that we'll be working on. And some of those things will be things we'll do with our family and our children and grandchildren. Some of those things, will include where are we going to give significantly of both time and money, what things we want to be engaged in. So that is something to look forward to, as well as this ever-growing book list and stack of books on my desk at home, what Kim would call my friends.
His friend.
You guys are a wonderful couple. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Kent, we're so grateful we still have a few more months with you before you actually retire, but the entire team at Foster Group just wishes you all the best.
Oh, we thank you. And we would just kind of, mirror that thanks back to the people at Foster Group, the clients that I've been able to work with over the years, the employees, the team here is just great. They're just great people to work with. And even the people who we choose to work with who are kind of providers outside, some of our investment managers and people, I've just been very fortunate to work with enjoyable, quality people of character. And that, that makes for a super enjoyable career. So we're very thankful to have had that experience for sure.
And AI has nothing on your 3x5 index cards.
No. It's handwritten.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
As we wrap up today's conversation, one message stands out clearly. The question isn't simply, can I manage my own finances? But instead, is that the best option? What makes Kent and Kim's story so powerful is that it comes from a family with deep financial expertise. Yet they recognize the value of financial advice. It's about having confidence and trusted partners. It's about freeing yourself to focus on the people, experiences, and priorities that matter most. And it's about knowing that if life takes an unexpected turn, the people you love will have a capable team beside them who understand your goals and values. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. At Foster Group, we wish you the very best as you plan for a meaningful, confident, and fulfilling retirement. If today's conversation sparked questions or ideas about your own future, we invite you to reach out to us at fostergrp.com to explore what intentional planning could look like for you and your family.